Holy cow, today is hot. It's 88 degrees here in Seattle, Washington. I'm hanging out here in my backyard and I've got another amazing guest for you today. Let me just check this stat. Some of you know that my mom passed away a few years ago. And during her memorial, the pastor said, I thought something really unique. She said, Hannah Chen, your mom had leadership. And we're like, what? What do you mean? And she goes, she's actually one of the few who actually had all of her stuff ready to be paired when she passed away. I think the statistic is something like 25% of the people around her age have a will and have all their affairs in order. The rest of the 75% either haven't dealt with it or are not ready for it. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, engaging virtual meetings, and we're going to talk about karaoke some because this person just is multi-talented, multifaceted, recent author, and one of my favorite karaoke singers. Let's bring in one and only Will Ferry, JO Welch.
Hello. Thank you for welcoming me into your backyard. I really appreciate it.
Look at that. I love your new background too. Like you
Thank
got your new
you.
author background.
You like that? It was like, I'm like, wait a minute, I need to throw something up here. Yeah, this is one of my most recent accomplishments. I'm so excited to be a part of the Empowerment Empires. It's called Boss Latinas, the anthology. And so not only am I an author, but in support, a lot of our industry and a lot of the communities who are trying to put out more materials, more books, more chapters, getting our stories out there are often one person, right? Solopreneur people. And so I feel very blessed that Vahil Vigil allowed me to be the assistant editor and just kind of have her back while she was getting everything together. So all of a sudden I went not only from having my chapter in there, but also seeing behind the scenes and meeting an amazing 31 boss Latinas and all of their stories. And it was just such an amazing experience. It was so fun.
Well, welcome to the author club. What I love to tell authors too, right? Which is like writing the book is 20%. Of course, getting the book out there is the other 80%. And speaking of getting out there, let's find out about this one and only boss Latina, you. Why don't you tell my friends who don't know you who you are and some of the things that you do, because you do a lot of them.
Thank you so much. So I want to start by saying first, just thank you for having me. And if you guys are coming onto this page, you obviously know John Chen, and what we know about him is not only is he engaging, and not only do I only know him virtually, but he has become a dear friend, a business partner, a partner in crime, and has really changed my life by creating a room of like-minded people and just finding opportunities to support not only me, but other people in the time, right, when the pandemic hit. At a time when things were really difficult, we get together every Saturday night, or as many Saturdays as you can make it, and just sing our faces off. And it's just amazing. So thank you so much, John. I appreciate and feel very blessed for our friendship. So my name is Jeanette Ocampo Welch, and I am in the deaf community. I'm a sign language interpreter. So my sign name, I'm just going to share it with everyone, is Joe, like Cup of Joe. And when you're with me, I get you excited and awake, and we are like ready to deal with the day, right? So for those of you who know sign language, it's Joe. And then as Joe, I developed my brand, Ask Joe, because I felt that, especially as a first generation American Latina, I'm watching you do some. I didn't know if you wanted me to throw to third. Something was happening.
No, I wanted to try and figure out if I could do Joe.
so I'll share it with you. So there's a J. Do you see how I just drew a J in the air?
Yeah.
And then an O.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. J-O. And then because I smile a lot, a dear friend of mine started like you're hugging me. So start on one side. Your J is going to be on the other side. Start on the other side of your nope. Same hand, your dominant hand. There you go. And then you're bringing that over to the same side, and that's an O over here.
I didn't know there was a cross. Okay, good. Yeah. That's new.
Yeah. So I'm Joe, and Ask Joe is my umbrella company. And within it is, it did start pretty much with my sign language interpreting career. But I want to go back a little bit. And the chapter in the Boss Latinas book also speaks to this. I'm a first generation American with Colombian parents. And for a lot of folks out there, you may or may not understand what that experience might mean. And what it means for me is that I belong to nothing and everything all at the same time. Growing up here in the United States, I was born in New York. I was American. I would go to school, I would learn things, watch television. I was an American born citizen here. My life was American. And then when I went home, there was different values and different cultures. And for a big part of my life, that actually had a huge impact on my self-esteem, how I saw myself in the world. I do have a big moment that I do talk about in the chapter, which I'm also going to make into a children's book, when we made a very big move from New York to Miami. And the climate at the time, my parents were trying to do the best that they could, but that lack of information for me really set me on a course to feel unworthy and always like I was behind the eight ball. Yeah. Me, I'm a very confident person. I love life and I live it to the fullest. And that's always been me. But behind that, for a really long time, it was filled with fear, insecurity. And I believe, in my experience, talking to other, not just first gens, but especially marginalized communities, people who are with disabilities, anything that puts you in that place where you feel like you're an other, very often you have very similar feelings to this, where you don't feel worthy. And all of that to say that I did not grow up really like business forward. I did not grow up thinking, although I should have. I was a bartender. I did a lot of cool, fun things, but I didn't know how to save money. I didn't know how to think like that. It wasn't what was in my environment. And as an adult, and I'll tell you, I'm 52 years old. And as an adult, it's only in the last maybe 5+ years that I've started to really address big picture. I started to address entrepreneurship, but then I moved on to really working on coaching, being coached. I found this amazing group, which was all first generation Latinas. And for the first time in my life at age 50, I was in a room of people who were just like me, and the shorthand and the comfort. And so I've been on this journey that I think a lot of you may be at the very beginning of. Some people don't even know why they're hurting. They don't even have a label for how this disconnect makes them feel. And it shows up in, depending on who you are, it shows up in all these different ways. Some of it, especially if you're, and you'll hear me talking about all the things I do, has to do with inclusion, diversity, and all of this led to wanting to start different kinds of businesses that allowed me to educate, inform, and create community, which is exactly what being a part of the Latina community is like. It's a collectivist culture. And so everything I do replicates that. That's why meeting John and being part of Karaoke Family just became so natural. Being a part of that coaching space absolutely changed the game in a very short amount of time. And since then, I've been running and really just owning my space in the entrepreneur space. And I do it through the lens. Right now, one of my vehicles is through the lens of the Will Fairy. And so you had brought up your story about your mom. I'm really happy that everything was in order and the I's and the T's were crossed. But a lot of folks, and I'm going to tell you my secret. This is the whole secret, that a lot of folks do not realize that they are the ones of value. So when I ask people if they have their will, if I ask folks where is that in their life, very often the response is, can you guess what the response is? I don't have anything.
IDK, I don't know.
I don't know, because there's the whole I don't know, but it's like, I don't have anything. I don't have a property. I don't have a house. And so this is all just part of the same journey of feeling unworthy, of not knowing how to measure the things around us, how to find that sense of strength within us, and also being different, and it not necessarily being seen as a deficit. So for me, I lead with inclusion and love, conversation and song. And I think I'm going to start doing more events with karaoke, because you know what? Why not? There isn't enough karaoke in the world.
Okay, so we got a chance to do a couple things. Like, one is Joe actually sang the opening song for all my friends who are in Meeting Professionals International. If you went to the Cascadia conference, the theme was it Rise Above?
Rise. Just rise.
Rise. It was Rise Up. Rise Up. You sang Rise Up, and of course you sang Rise Up as the opening, and it was a really cool part, right? It was Because a lot of conferences start, they're like people are like, welcome, there's some speech, blah blah blah. But this didn't do that, and it really changed everybody, right? It made that emotional impact, and the chat then blew up with like, this is a great way to start a conference. This is beautiful. This is amazing, right? And so forth and so on. Talk about that. Talk about the power of music for you. Why you love either music and or singing so much.
Absolutely. And so I was born singing. My father, from ever since I was little, my father would take out his guitar. He's a Colombian man who loved Mexican rancheras. And so we just sang. We just sang always in our house. Like that was just part of the everyday fabric of who I was. So I don't know a life without that. And the reason I bring that specifically up is because someone had noted it to me most recently, because my teenager graduated, who's also sings in the karaoke and is going to Pace University in New York for directing and theater. But we had a party that was just filled with music the whole entire day. And I never thought about how different that was than some other houses that did not have that constant presence of music. And so I'm also a singer and an actor, and I do production, but music is so important. My husband is also an award-winning international blues guitar player named Monster Mike Welch. And we are raising our amazing teenager JQ. We have a nonprofit, Mystic River Theater Company, and in the pandemic we created an online couple of productions online to be able to keep the kids engaged and find a way to still have art, even though at the time we were very, very disconnected physically.
Let's go around the corner too with JQ, right? Which is like, we got to meet JQ. He came and sang a song on karaoke. He just graduated, I believe, and I would love to like, I don't know, just share your parenting journey, especially because you're at this divergence point now, right?
I
JQ's
do. It's a
out
it's
to
a
the world.
wild thing. It is. It's very wild. So JQ is my teenager. They are non-binary. Their pronouns are they, she, and we only have one kid. My husband and I truly feel like we just put all the good stuff into this one. So there's, some people are like, did you want another? And I'm like, why would we? We literally have the best kid ever. And I think also on top of that, generationally, I'm a Gen Xer, so looking at that Gen Xer, looking at the first gen stuff, a lot of us grew up in a very specific way. It was kind of like the Wild West of parenting. It felt, being a Gen Xer and growing up in the 70s and 80s. And so really being able to just have this human in front of me and take all the things that are so important to me, the communication, the inclusion, the understanding where people are, and raising a child that way. And what we have is a child who, the three of us in the pandemic, thrived. We brought all the studios up into the house. So I have one corner in the living room. JQ has their studio in their room. My husband has a music studio on what used to be our kitchen table, which hasn't been for 2 years. And again, the moment it made an impact on me was when we had all these people over for the graduation party. And they're now looking around our house, which is fundamentally a studio with some couches. It's still a home, but it is definitely, my parents looked at me and they're like, this is a lab. And I'm like, it is a lab. Like, that is absolutely correct.
I met your mom. I met your mom online, and I heard your parents sing. Right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. They are amazing. You got a chance to meet a couple of my family members. And so JQ for us, one, we just became closer over the pandemic.
Aww.
The other piece is that, for all the parents out there, I think that people are coming at parenting in so many different ways. And the truth is that as long as we're really listening and wanting to know who these people are, because remember, that's us. That was us when we were 17 and 18 years old, and we wanted to be understood. And it just is it's such a blessing to watch them mature and grow. And now they're about to take this amazing adventure. The pandemic spoiled us because we were all home and safe and in our neighborhood. And now we're actually going to be shipping our kid to New York, which is, a hop, skip, and a jump, and we have a wonderful infrastructure there, but they will literally be just starting their lives in the Big Apple. And I was born there. So I do have connections. I was born in Brooklyn, but it's just such a point of pride. I mean, you've heard JQ sing as well, right? You've been on those calls. I brought JQ in. JQ also helped me KJ one of the nights. I got to sub for John while John was on vacation, and it's just such a delight. It's
Okay,
such.
okay. So now we can move on to that part, right? Which is, I helped you do one of your bucket list like things, which is you got to be a karaoke jockey. You led my karaoke for 4 weeks while I was on vacation. Thank you for doing that. I would love to
Absolute
kind of,
pleasure.
yeah, I'd love to hear like your learnings or like, like what's the joy in being a karaoke jockey? I know I do it every Saturday, and I love it, but I want to know why you love it.
Well, one, I love karaoke. So we're just going to start there. Like, a lot of people, I can sing. I do sing. I love singing, right? I really, really love it. And I really feel that karaoke is such a great place to be an equalizer for people because it's not about that you can sing well. And I acknowledge that I come from a place where I can sing and I do sing songs, but it doesn't matter. And that's the whole point for me. That's the whole point of the group is that everybody has a chance to get it to the mic. The thing I love and that I've seen in your room, which I promoted every single week, is that people can come to the karaoke space and they can tell a story, tell a joke, tell a poem. Oh my gosh, you weren't there, but Mary is going to be in a calendar.
Oh yeah,
She's a calendar girl. Did she tell you?
she did the photo shoot just recently. This
Yeah,
last.
she announced it. She found out she was going to be in the calendar. So you find out all these things. It's this wonderful little room. It's not too big. It comes in and out. There's sometimes some people who pop in. And the thing I think that makes it also the best is that you've taught me so much about technology. You've refined my game fundamentally. Like I came in with some skills, but you absolutely upped my game. And so to be able to do this the Saturdays that you were out, at first I will admit I was nervous because you have such a rapport with the group. And am I going to come in and are they going to want to keep showing up week after week if you're not there? And I was very blessed that we had this really lovely group. We had a couple new faces, and it's really just about giving people a stage. And I can't think of a better metaphor for me than to have people be able to take the stage and tell their own story however they want to tell it. To me, that's the most inclusive communication. And so sometimes people can sing, you can come and just watch. That's the thing. I don't think enough people know that. Like just come and you can write audience and just be like, I'm just going to watch this like it's a show. I think we could really build an audience that way.
Here, I'm going to make sure I'm going to put the chat, at least here in Facebook, engaging virtual meetings, .eventbrite.com, and you will see karaoke there. So if you want to come join in, every Saturday, 7 o'clock. We've been going since March of 2020. We're past show 100. It's amazing, too, Joe, that we've actually done more than 100 shows. And yeah, I'm going to have to figure out, I don't know. Publishing is really hard with it all. There's all this copyright junk that's going on, but there is a way that like we could share what we're doing. I mean, just show up with that. All right. Now, and it goes back to karaoke. Like being a karaoke jockey, to me, one of the things that's important is inclusion. And again, and then what it means is that just going back to like your other parts too, like here on virtual, doesn't matter even if you were part of the majority class or whatever you want to call it, or the privilege class, is that everybody came here on virtual and they were a little felt out of place. Some people still feel out of place on virtual. And so it's kind of like, it's like what I love to tell people that it was like 330 people, 330 million people moved into a new country in a month.
Yeah.
Right, that's the number of people that jumped on Zoom. It went from 10 million to over 300 million in about a month. And yeah, and so I'd love to hear, what makes virtual engaging or inclusive for you? What do you see as some of the best practice in either my or other people's meetings? 'Cause I'd love to hear from your perspective, because I think you probably use that same knowledge of saying, I came from a different place and now I'm trying to fit in here. Like virtual is almost the same experience. I'm curious if like you took some lessons and shared them across.
Well, I want to say that as a sign language interpreter, as somebody who has been a part of the deaf community since 1993, so my experience is about, we're coming, I guess next year will be 30 years that I've been a part of the deaf community in that capacity. I actually met a deaf friend when I was in the 8th grade, and that's what got things started for me, is that when you look in the history, so deaf communication started with machines, right? These teletypewriters that would allow them to connect. It sounded a lot like a fax. They were called VPs, right? They were called, no, they were, what were they called? Oh my God.
Teletype?
Yeah, but there's another word for it. That's TTYs. So the
It's
TTYs, and so people are talking to each other. I mean, it's so fascinating. Any of the historians out there, if you love looking at things, like looking at, people used to use these and they were like, they took up the size of a room and they like shook people's houses. And there's just amazing stories about this. And then you fast forward to the fact that things started to show up online. And so now, before Zoom, before Skype, you start to see technology start to come up where the video starts to play into it. And so communication starts to become direct to direct or through an interpreter. And once Skype and Zoom and some of these other platforms start to expand, this is how we're talking to each other or sending videos to each other, right? So you sign something and you send it. And so now people are able to receive, and I'm not talking about being an interpreter, and I'm not talking about these other engaging ways to engage. This is actually, if I want to talk to my friend, how does that happen? And, keeping in mind that the deaf community is so diverse. We have, they have their own language, their own culture, American Sign Language, different in every country. I know that people have a million questions about it. And I'm not going to be the one to tell you the answers. What we need to do, and what everyone needs to keep in mind, and this is also through the business lens, is that when we're looking for some of this information, that we need to be sure we're including deaf people, right? And that's the overarching larger picture that we're doing with, the critical race theory, and how we're bringing inclusion, and how do we, look for people to come into our businesses and retain them. And what that is that if somebody's got an experience and they know what they need, then they should be the driver of that experience.
So I
And
think what we've seen too is, I've gotten a chance on a couple occasions to really design more inclusive virtual meetings, such as having Spanish interpreters, right? Again, I've produced an 8-language Zoom, having ASL, right, inside of the video. And the key here is presented in the right way so that both audiences, right, it doesn't matter where you are in the audience, that you're getting the right information. And sometimes what we've seen here too is like the sign interpreters too, for many, over coronavirus, many public officials have to give public notices, and their sign language interpreters quite often become these stars. Like, people are saying, we love watching that person more than listening to your governor, right?
well, and we also, and again, like once we pull the scope out, we have to remember that interpreters don't exist without the deaf. I want to say deaf, blind, and hard of hearing communities. And so,
Yep.
when this has to do with me as a brown girl, as a Latina, first generation, that there's people who speak Spanish, but then there are people who know the culture inherently and organically. And so sometimes, and this is I think this is one of the lessons, especially in the switch to video, but I think this is a lesson that we all need to take away, is that privilege, this might be a little hard to start with, but like, the idea of privilege for me is about convenience. If you can get an answer very, very quickly,
Yeah.
and you go towards that answer and that solution, and you hire that person, or you go, I understand the merit, right? Time is money and all that. But that's probably the least inclusive process. If that's all you do is you go to your first answer. And so the thing that we're doing is we're pausing and saying, well, if I really want, like, I plan on doing some ebooks and some e-courses about something as simple as how to turn on your captions.
Yeah.
Now, while it serves a lot of really good reasons that are not deaf, I also want to make sure that my partners are deaf and that they are telling their story and that they're sharing their knowledge about it as well. And so that's, it takes a moment. It takes a little longer. Sometimes it's a little more expensive, but the reality is that that's where we're trying to go with in terms of the norm. When we
Well,
did
what?
the,
Oh,
Mhm.
sorry, Joe. What I love about this too is some of the stuff used to cost money and now is becoming free, right? And then things that were used to, like, basically be crappy or terrible. Like, I know the nickname sometimes for captions is craptions from some of my friends, because the captions are so bad. But right now, look, I'm watching on Facebook and LinkedIn, and the captions are running, and so that even if you don't have the volume on, or if you could not hear, you can actually sit here and understand a good portion of this conversation. And then it becomes on you, on the host, right? I did have to click a couple buttons to do that. It didn't cost me anything, but it is now one of my default practices. And I think that's what you're talking about. I know that's what I'm talking about at Inclusion too, which is, what are those practices that we can do to make things better if they're not done by default, right?
Right. And so that kind of mindset goes into, right. That goes into everything, right? So if we're trying to be inclusive,
Hmm.
it takes time, and time is the thing that we don't have a lot of. And so if you're pausing taking a moment, and I'll actually do a little plug for squid minders here, because I think it always brings me back to the squid. We have to squid that thing. I work with Dr. Mel Gannis, and she has the quality of life experiments, and in there is squid minders, and squid minders is starting with a poem, which I don't know the poem by heart yet, but the premise is that squid is an acronym for stop, question, understand, imagine, and decide. Right? Stop, question, understand, imagine, and decide. And imagine if we squidded everything. If we squidded inclusion, we would stop and say, like, who has the answer? Does the room full of people who have never had this answer before have this answer? Yeah. No. Why don't we go to an expert in the space that we're looking for? And it takes sacrifice, it takes time. But if we're planning now, right? People are like, I don't have it in my budget. Well, plan now. I'm putting you on notice. Plan now for interpreters. We should probably just do this little PSA, because it's the easiest thing. Go to your settings, and in advanced settings, toggle everything that says captions. Yeah. That's step one. Yep. And so just if you do it right now, or if you're going to do it, just put wherever the chat is, wherever you are in the world, just say 1. Right? So that's at your settings level. And once you do that once, it's forever set in the background. Yep. And if you're doing multiple Zooms, like if you have a large team that are doing multiple Zooms, everybody have a Zoom caption party. Everybody does the one step. Takes you seconds. The next piece is every time you show up in your Zoom room, there will be a little box. Oh, look at you. Oh, I love all the technology.
Yes. Manual captions right here. Wait, I'll make the screen big for the rest of the people. Right. Hold on. Oops, I gotta pin myself. So this one there. Okay. So in this one here, manual captions, turn these on. And by the way, then we have had human captioners, which then the captions are much higher guaranteed to be better. And you can assign somebody and say, you are now the captioner. I've actually done that as a producer. And this one here, the automated captions is really a key here. And then you can allow people to save the captions. If it's open, it's fine with that. All right. So now go back to the next step.
So at this point, everyone put your ones in there, because you've already done it. You've toggled it. And let's say you forget. It's okay. You can forget, because when you open the room, as we know, you just look to your bar and it'll say live transcript, and you'll tap that little box with a CC in it, and you'll see show subtitles or enable the subtitles from the host side. And that is going to allow everybody, they get to decide if they want it or not. But I want to just point out, since I like giving away things for free. So this is what we're giving. This is the first thing we're giving away for free. And so the free thing is that if you do that, when you record, it records the transcript. And so when you have note takers or people who are trying to write things down, now, mind you, you're going to see very firsthand how terrible automatic captions are, right? However, it also does serve that you can fix them. And that's, I'm giving you permission to fix them. This is the piece, right?
This is new. I've actually discovered this, because we actually, Joe, that's really interesting. There was a closed caption that misinterpreted something into a swear word, which was actually showing up, and it was really bad. So in Zoom too, by the way, this is a new distinction I made. Closed captioning is actually different than transcription. There's actually 2 different files, so I had to remove one of them. And then you can go in there on Zoom, if you're going to recording to the cloud, you can go to the captions, hit a little pencil, right, and edit it. Here, I'll give this bonus piece that was here. You know, if you go to a meeting and the transcriptions are not, or the captioning is not on, you can ask for it. So you can at least bug the host, right? So that even as an attendee, you can say, could you please turn the closed captioning on without having to, talk or be on the chat. So
and here's the deal, is that if you already have it done in your settings, if that's already set, then you're all set, because now you don't have to worry, because it'll be ready. But if you don't have it, if it's not set, you can't automatically set it.
It's not even available
for the meeting you're in.
That's right.
And I think that's the biggest surprise, is that you think you can just turn it on. You actually have to have the first step done before you open any rooms.
Side note, I have a really cool class called Extreme Zoom Makeover, and I take a stock Zoom account and I tell you all the steps I tell you to bring it up to an account to where like I would use it basically.
That's
And
awesome.
so it's like extreme makeover where
Make,
you're
oh
like,
no, I'm
move
with
that
you. I think
bus, move
that'd be a
that.
blast. That's a blast. I would love, let me know. And if you're looking for people to do that with, I'll happily find you some deaf folks, because I'm sure,
Oh,
not everything's transparent, right? So
that's
that's a big part of, just again, it goes back to accessibility. And so I will hear the bonus pieces. Maybe you have people who are like not able to turn on their volume, or they don't want to put a headset in. Guess what? You put on those captions, they can read. They can see it there. It holds the transcript. They can see what's going on. They can participate in the chat. So it just allows you to do so many other things. And most importantly, to quote Stephanie Tanner from Full House, how rude to not have your to not have your captions on. How rude indeed.
all right. What are some other like best practices that you've seen in your meetings, whether it's like for this ASL or deaf community, or even just for um, well-run meetings? Like I mean, you can even share with
Absolutely.
me too, like the best. What is like one of the best run or most surprising virtual meetings that you've ever attended?
Well, and I'll think about, give me a second for that. And of course I'm going to say the karaoke, but
Plug.
so I'm also going to allude to some of the other things that are part of my journey, which is finding really amazing coaches that allow you to up your game, right? And so I told you about the Enya Dream Accelerator, and that was all first generation Americans, run by Denise Solar Cox, who's a filmmaker, and she did Being Enya, which is about the first generation experience, and she's doing a second film that should be coming out soon. And then now I'm also a part of Forbes Riley's coaching. And that I learned through an event called Real Summit. I had gotten a link, I wasn't sure. And just with the most simplest things, like learning how to pitch, suddenly the way I approached my business just got even better. And the big piece was I was looking for help in improving how I show up on screen. And a lot of people don't speak that language. They don't know what it is that it takes. I was like, is it program? Is it what? I have two lights, like just as something as simple as two lights.
Yeah.
And the background looks great. I do have a green screen. I do have a microphone. So I know that my voice is sounding good. But even without this, I'm still doing all right. With the green screen, I'm doing all right. But those lights, I think, were just a
No.
absolute game changer for me.
Yeah,
And so I just
we do this thing called the KB carousel, right? Your internet connection, your audio, your video, your electricity, which is your lighting, and then your virtual or in-person background, and then improve them all over again. Do the carousel, just keep doing it
right.
until and don't stop actually doing it. Like make small, minor improvements to everything. Like
Always,
I got to
every
go
day.
back and call my provider because it's been a year since I called them, and I think I'm going to get another level of internet performance for the same price or less. Is what you should
Ooh,
do.
very good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I loved all these sharing tips. And so just going back to the original question about like my experience with virtual and altogether is
Okay.
because of the deaf community. I have already been online and doing virtual meetings, and I belong to I have several affiliate work that I do with the different affiliate groups. So I'm an independent associate with PPLSI Legal Shield. I'm an independent consultant with Power, which is a residential solar. So I have some of these things, but PPLSI for me was so critical because the leaders there have been developing a huge deaf team. So I actually have, for the last probably 3 to 5 years, been already online. So pre-pandemic, I was already a part of meetings that were happening internationally with speakers at the front of the room, audience training, slides. And so it was really interesting to watch that when the rest of the company had to get on board while they're doing their best and being amazing, the deaf group was like, this is no different, we're already we're already doing this. And it was just like, it's such an honor because we have such amazing leaders. And you're going to notice that I'm very deliberate to say where my knowledge comes from. And so this is kind of an aside because I think that expertise and coaching is so critical in our business development.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do it on their own. And, I tip my hat to you. but it also makes us very myopic. When you're only focused on one thing and you're just trying to truck along, you can't see the other things that are there, including sometimes happiness, balance, maybe other ways to do it that might be easier or better, save money. These all go into what, inclusion. Instead, it always feels like a burden because you're just trying to get to the next day. And so just looking at all of these different areas, like I would not be me if I hadn't been and am an active part of this deaf business team, because we're all learning together on how to manage that and how to how to manifest. And then the pandemic hit, and so now everybody else was coming on board and having to figure that out as well. And I want to just do a little shout out to PPLSI to say, watching them really take that deaf leadership and pulling deafness and ASL up into the same space as any of the trainings. It's also, and these are my I call shameless plugs, and it's not a new word, but this is what I call it, shameless plugs to these things, because that gave me my business training. I started to understand the sales cycle. I started to understand what it meant to prospect and look at these not with the lens of like, ew, car salesman, which I think is very common, right? Nobody wants to be sold.
Yep.
But the other side of it is that our entire life, everything is sales.
Sales is influencing, and if you really want to help other people, you have to look at it that way.
right,
And most sales courses do have to find ways to get over that. And what you see here too, like at least here too, like here in Seattle in the Pacific Northwest, right? A lot of things that really work are like anti-sales and anti-marketing. Right. What I mean by that is like I don't go and ask Joe for the sales. What I should do is hang out with Joe, and maybe one day she'll come back and she'll say, John, now that I understand who you are and what you do, I need you now.
right.
I'm going to ask you. And so that's how, like, at least here in the Northwest, how a lot of things work. And that's how they work best. And I also found that in business that when you do it right, you become a magnet for it instead of you having to be like a, pestery,
Exactly.
need something.
And some people are burned out, and these are my little things. So in the chapter that I wrote for Boss Latinas,
Yeah.
I spelled it out through I'm still working through some of these analogies, but as a Latina, I thought like, well, if you're going to a party and you have someone in the house who's like, are you going dressed like that? That's your right. That's your mentor. Think about it. That's your mentor. That's the person who's been to these things and saying, this may not be the right way to show up there. You get there and that auntie grabs you by the hand and introduces you to her neighbor who has a son living in the college town that you're living in. And you're like, I don't know these people. But if you think about that, that's actually a referral, or maybe even like a third party, edification to give you into someone else's network. And so there's all these things that happen in our lives, but because of deficit and poverty mindset, because you're constantly fighting so hard, or at least I was, and a lot of the people in my world were, and because society is so harsh in these areas, it's hard to see these parallels, but we live in them every day. The one story I want to tell is this, and this is, I plan on writing a couple children's books, and one of them is something around sales, and I call it the virtue of broccoli. And so when my little human was little, and they needed to start to learn how to eat green vegetables, I had that interest. I had that belief that things that were green, broccoli, asparagus, and the like, was going to be a good thing to get into their face and into their body. And so I had ways I could do this, right? I could cut it up. I can make them eat it. I could do it in one way. I could be, I could have anger. I can have sadness. I can have joy. And what we did was I roasted them and we ate the trees. And then I would get asparagus and we'd put each side in our mouth and we would nibble to the middle in a race. And so it speaks to, for me, that speaks to sales. I had this thing I was selling was health through the vehicle of asparagus. And my 2-year-old, 3-year-old, whatever age it was when they're eating asparagus, like they bought into this idea and they eat vegetables now because that, you know what I mean? Like that's sales. Everything we do is sales.
Yes.
And so I think it's that people aren't trained. They don't know what to do. How do we love on somebody who has that entrepreneurial spirit and may not be quite polished yet, may not have the right trainers? Yep. So if you're watching this and you know somebody who's been kind of like slamming up against the door, like not sure what to do and trying to figure it out, one, connect them with me because I would love to love all over them. But also remember that they might just be in the early stages of that journey, and be curious about where they are in a year, especially if that's their passion. Like be very curious, because some of these opportunities are crazy. And if you know what I mean, like people are earning money. The world has changed in terms of business. We have a lot of business people now, entrepreneurs and network marketing, direct marketing. You know, we have things that are just happening. People are creating their own stores, Etsy. Like we went back to the, you know, what is it? The butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. We're back in that era. And everybody, you know, if you have your friend's lotion, or if you love that lip balm from that place that puts the honey in it, or if you know any of those things, if you're doing that, you have bought because of something that sold you.
So and that's like Kathy. This is a shout out to my very good friend Kathy Armias. She runs a whole marketing company, and her whole thing is like her marketing campaign is to get your customers to fall in love with you, right? So it's like, you know, like, and that's so she actually, this is one of her cards, right? This is if you see this.
That's
She gives
awesome.
these, you know, this is part of like, and she just like made these little things that like developed, you know, through her trainings and other stuff like that, and then she gives them to a bunch of people, and yeah, but that is really the kind of the key. This in sales and marketing is like if you can get your customers to fall in love with you, right, on that business way, I think that's really the key. You know, Joe, I know you think about things all the time. You saw all this change. I love that you changed your whole, you know, house into a lab, basically. What do you see for the future of virtual, right? You know,
Well, and to
we're at
catch
that
up
time.
with
We're
all
coming.
the, I know
Yeah.
with all the questions. How much time do we have left?
We got about 10 minutes or so.
Ooh, okay, I want to be sure to manage because there's a lot of things I haven't mentioned. We haven't even talked about the Will Ferry yet.
Yeah, see?
And so in terms of virtual, and this is where we still are. One, I don't think it's going away. I want to acknowledge that it is an absolute game changer, especially for people with disabilities and people who live in rural areas who can get internet. Remember that not everybody does. And so these are the things you think, like, I don't know, as an inclusion specialist, I think about this all the time of, you know, not everybody has access to it. However, if they do, it's bringing people to the table who didn't even know there was a table before. And so, you know, the things that are changing is that you can have a meeting. It's not that hard, and you can actually include more people by doing it on Zoom. The things that I love in terms of, well, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that you do run an engaging virtual meeting, and it's a blast to have games and these different ways and approaches. But it's not just that it's virtual. It's really taking the idea of meetings and remembering that everything's about relationships. And I think that's a big shift in business, right? As well, that you can't just you're not showing up at a board meeting in a suit. You are building relationships with people that you hope are going to keep on wanting to work with you and spend time with you and do things with you as you manifest, whatever that might be, whether it's widgets or it's the Will Fairy. You want somebody who's part of your community. And that is a very big shift. I know a lot of people have Zoom fatigue. I think that definitely breaking it up is helpful, but also, okay, that's just one of the things. Oh, the one thing I want to say is everybody learn how to remark about technology. So we know, right? We know that things are going to go wrong. John just tried to help me not just 4 days ago when everything was set. We double checked and it still didn't go right for me. And I couldn't get this one piece.
Yep.
So I love that I had a mentor who would come and help me.
Yeah.
But we can't get upset anymore. I mean, you can, if you really want to, you're more than welcome to get upset. But the question is this what you want to put out into the world? The reality is that we're using technology and it is something that we cannot control. And the people on the other side also cannot control it. And so again, looking at that space to say, how just even having, I mentor sign language interpreters as well, and just having those scripts ready, especially as a host, especially if you're nervous as a host and want to go out there and you don't know what to do, have some sentences ready that say, ladies and gentlemen, maybe make a joke about it. You know, we paid for these interruptions, so let's let that pass, or whatever that, you know what I mean?
Use that one. I haven't used that one. That's a good
You know,
one.
like this is VIP. This is our VIP section. So we have at least 3 interruptions coming. Let me know if we got our contract filled. But like just thinking about it, you know, these things happen and there are a lot of ways to solve the problem. You can come in on a phone. You can come in on FaceTime on the screen and someone can share their screen and suddenly you're in the meeting. Like there's a million ways if you stop, question, you like the callback, understand, imagine, and decide, like going back to that squid space. Because as we already learned, time is not going as fast as we thought it was. The pandemic taught us that. So the question is, what did you gain in the pandemic time that you didn't have before? And what are you going to hold on to as things are? And I'll put air quotes normal, because we know that that we are still not sure about what's happening next. My kid, we came back from orientation and my kid got COVID for 10 days. You know, I didn't. So far, so good. But I do want to transition into, I want to tell a little bit about
Well, this is
my
what I was gonna
business.
do. Watch this, Joe. All right, look, you can cram in or be the Joe stream of consciousness, but I'll run a 5 minute timer so to get anything and everything else that you want to get into
I
this
love it.
program.
I love it.
Here we go. Ready?
Um,
3, 2, 1, go.
okay, anything and everything. Oh, I have a timer. So I am a first generation Latina who felt that there needed to be something out there that helped me feel like I was worthy. Once I started to understand that, I started to focus on the wills. The will is a great first step to start to understand our value, because we're taking inventory of our success. In 2020, my friend Tony went in an ambulance, was delivered to the hospital, and was in a coma for 31 days. He didn't have a power of attorney. He didn't have a will. And he had family and a brother, and his mom was in another state, and he had best friends and all these people. And it was in the beginning of the pandemic. It was in July. And so nobody can reach him. And it caused a lot of pain at a very, very difficult time. And fortunately, he's still with us. He's amazing. And so that really just solidified for me my desire to create the Will Fairy. And what the Will Fairy does is, I'm your accountability partner. I'm your big sister. I'm the one who says, okay, we're going to meet for about 6 times on a Monday. We're going to come together. You're going to have some time to just stop and look at the paper and be like, what do I need to do this week? And then we're going to talk about just some concepts about last wishes. Right now I have a journal on Amazon that is a blank journal, the Will Fairy journal, but I'm actually creating a companion that's going to be part of the Will Fairy 45-day challenge. I'm creating different levels and membership, and the goal being that you have accountability, you have a place to go so you don't feel like you don't know, you have other people who are in the same boat as you, not giving away any legal advice because none of us are attorneys. You still have to find your own attorney. You can bring one in with you, or we have some options as well that you can look into. And then we do it together and we go through 6 weeks. You get coached and loved on. We have a Facebook page and you get it done. And I believe honestly that what you get in it is a different idea of what the will is. It's not about your death. It's about inventory of your life and your success. And it becomes a living document, not a death document. And so with the last 2 minutes, what other things do I want to talk about? I just want to plug and it's gratitude. I am so grateful because in the PPLSI, in Forbes, I've had a lot of coaches. Giovanna Allen is amazing and helped me, just supporting me. There's so many people. And I hope that you each are also reaching out to your mentors and the people who've made such a huge difference. The interpreting community, just like there's so many people who fed into me, that when we get to a place of success, we don't do it alone, even though sometimes it feels like we are. And I've had my share of the gaslighters, and I've had my share of the naysayers, and I've had my share of the people who just don't understand how I think. And maybe you're like me. Maybe you are out there like me and going like, I don't think people get me. Okay, maybe you're also surrounded by the wrong people. And so I invite you, and I know I have plenty of time. We could talk about other things. I'm going to need a minute, but like, I invite you to reach out to me. I am going to say, I want to give something away. I love giving things away. And that's part of my own business problem, is free gift from thewillfairy.com. And you'll get my free ebook, and it talks about the 5 ways, to get out of your way to start that will. But from there, you'll also become part of my newsletter, which is going to actually encompass all the things that I'm doing. It's going to have my fun, like karaoke. It's going to have anything that the Mystic River Theater Company has done. It's going to have, if you are looking for solar panels or power or things like that, I have an affiliate with that. If you're looking to make money, that's the entrepreneur side. And also, if you're just looking for a coach to just meet with you and maybe just help settle some things out, I'm your girl, because I see you out there and I look forward to meeting each and every one of you. I know we still have a little time. And also, the Boss Latina anthology is located on Amazon as well. And so I think that's it with a minute to spare. Is there anything that you wanted me to share?
Why you love to sing so much?
It's not conscious. It's just who I am. I just do. In fact, in my head, I'm singing songs right now. I've gotten into a couple of real beautiful songs lately. The one with you from Ghost, love it.
Right.
I like big songs. So I do Whitney and I do really big songs. Like
Yeah.
I like songs, that you can just really sink your teeth into.
And so the link is in here. It's posted as part of this. So do that. You can download Joe's piece. I put her LinkedIn tag over there. So if you want to reach out to her, but Joe's just one of the good ones. You should hang out and if you want, just even like I said, you don't have to sing. That's what I've discovered too, Joe. Is like there's so many people, right, who don't show up to that Saturday because they're like, you're gonna make me sing. No, I'm not. It's fine. You want to hang out? Like we've had a lot of people who just
I
come.
think what they're saying is that I really want you to sing and I want you to ask me, but I don't want you to ask me. And I want you to ask me, but I don't want you to ask me.
And it goes back to sales. Let's go back to that metaphor for sales, which is in the end we never force anybody to sing, right? And all we do is we create a container that at one day that if that's what you want to do, you come in and going, I would like to try a song. Right, that it's safe enough, and that they see, right, and they're like, we're nice people, nobody's harsh, right? There's no Simons in the audience, and yeah, and I think people, the people who become regulars have all done that. They came in, they watched a couple, yeah, then we figured this out, and we create something called the No Sorry Zone, right? So and we make it safe, and I think that's to me is the other part about inclusion, that is universal, which is you feel included when you feel safe.
Yep.
Right. If somebody comes
Absolutely.
in and recognizes that you're Latine or Latinx, that and tries to reach out with you, even if they're not part of their culture, but they recognize it, it goes such a long way.
Yep.
For me, same thing. Like a lot of times I'll realize, hey, I'm the only Asian in the room, right? But like people of color, like I make a point to make sure that I see other people who we are like the only ones of a certain particular category, and we'll just reach out. I'll just use that as the bonding point. The world would be just a better place if we could all do that universally. I know that doesn't appear to be that way, but there are more and more of us who I think who are doing it.
Absolutely. And it goes back to, and again, a lot of these business statements or thoughts or even coaching ones, like surround yourself with the five people look at the people around you. That's one thing to start with, right? You're evaluating who's around you. Are they pulling you back or are they pushing you forward? And if you're starting to be deliberate about that, then you're going to start to, if you feel like you can and you have the choice, or you need a coach or someone to cheer you on, then you're going to start to bring in those people into your inner circle. And yeah, it might be hard to let go of some friendships. You can just redefine them. They can still be your friend, but they may not be the people who need to be pushing you forward. And I think that having the attitude of gratitude, again, these are things that people are saying. I am not inventing any of these. And when you're grateful and you look at what people are also giving you, my family, right? My mother's decision to come to the United States, like there's nothing here that wasn't predetermined by somebody else in my life. And and also, if you are looking for that, do find coaches like me who just want to hear you and see you, and whether it's just meet up with you at karaoke, or maybe you do need a will, or you need,
Sign language interpreting, right?
sign language interpreting. Even if it's not me, I have enough resources where I can still refer you to somebody if you're curious about how to get more deaf presence in your companies, in your businesses, trying to get, protect your employees, whatever those things are. At least ask, because I'm Joe from Ask Joe, right? And so I have several different departments, right? There's personal and business and home, and the bottom line is that I see you, and there's some of us who are connectors. We have a very wide reach, and it's my joy to be able to connect you to the people that make sense to you, and also to cheerlead, because I do see you, and I see you, John. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful to everybody out there. I hope you reach out. I hope you take advantage of the ebook. It was very fun to make. And I'm going to be sharing things in that. I'm trying to establish the newsletter to just have not only business things, but also things that support our business, right? So they support us as entrepreneurs. And there's a lot of good stuff. I just found a CRM that I'm really excited about. And I'm building pages. I'm like so geeky. It's fantastic.
Well, that's why I love you, Joe, and that's why I see you. Make sure and pick up the book, Boss Latinas, as well as hang out and get Joe's free book. And for crying out loud, get your will done. And That's right. Yeah, get your will done. So, Joe, thank you so much for coming out here, hanging out, sharing a little bit of yourself. Close up here. Hey, I'm John Chen. That was an interview with the one and only amazing JO Welch. I hope you got something out of this program today, learning a little bit more about Joe. And again, if you want to hear her sing, come join us at karaoke on Saturday at 7 o'clock. She is there most Saturdays. And thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you on the next Engaging Virtual Meetings interview. We'll see you next time.
Always start people and keep old people. Show you got heart.